Hi, good evening or good morning whenever you're reading this or watching this. Welcome to Sherry's Simple Summaries. This is where I'll be offering you the usual free info, extra, get your free info. I know your time is valuable, and so is the information in this video, so you're going to want to stay and check it out, please. I'll make it worth your time. So this is like, this is my fourth video here on YouTube, and so some of you guys maybe seen me before, or if not, that's okay too. For those of you that are returning, hi, how was your week? Good, I hope. It's been interesting, hey? Mine has been interesting too. It's been good. It's been a rough one. Honestly, there's a lot of things going on. But that's okay. I said one video per week, and I'm going to stick to that because this is very good, important information that you need to know, especially since we're rolling into the new year, 2019. Can you believe it? So yeah, you're going to see me looking a lot towards my notes. So just bear with me while I do that. I have to look at them. Actually, I'm going to switch sides. Yeah, maybe this is better. Oh, yeah, let's do this. So anyways, I don't know. For some reason, I like looking to my right, probably because I'm right-handed. Blah, blah, blah. So yeah, I know too, I said I started off thinking that maybe I could do these videos in 30 minutes or less, but looking on it now realistically because of the type of information that we're covering and, you know, what and kind of how deep it has to go and with the visual cues and everything. So it's going to take a little longer, not too much longer than 30 minutes. I'll try to keep it as close to 30 minutes as possible, but we might go over a little bit. So please be patient, and I promise you it's worth your time. All right. I encourage you, if you want to go back and look at some of the other videos, to please do so. They're interesting, and they covered, that's where I cover the book, because this is a summary. This is a continuation of the summary of the book Guinea Pigs by Dr. John Hall, and I summarized chapters 1, 2, and 4, and I'll be summarizing 2 more chapters. I won't tell you what the topics are, but and then I'll be done with that. So that's a very good book, very valuable. I encourage you to buy it or check it out from your local library, get it on Kindle, you know the spiel. It's a good book. It's a great book. So, but I'm just going to summarize the 2 more chapters, and then we're finished with that. And let's see. So yeah, oh, one thing I wanted to show you guys was don't know where you guys are all from. I'm sure all around, right? This is broadcasting, so it reaches out into the world. But I bought a shirt that says where I'm from. Now, I'm not trying to like show you my bust or anything like that. I'm just trying to show you my shirt. And my bust are under my shirt, you know? That's just how it goes. But check this out. Pretty cool, hey? I thought so. It represents MKE, which is what we call Milwaukee now. So MKE, city of Milwaukee, we're a Midwestern state. It is a wonderful city. Honestly, it is. We are a great city on a great lake. That is our slogan, and we truly are. We have great colleges here. We have a good economy. Jobs pay pretty well. I know I spent some time down south this summer, and the jobs paid a little less, and you could tell the city had a little less money. It was wonderful, though. You know, different cities offer different things. They had great food down there and great weather. And, you know, Wisconsin is great. It's a little cold, especially in the wintertime. So another thing, too, you guys are going to see me in this hoodie a lot. And I was going to take it off and do the thing without it, but I'm cold. It's wintertime in Wisconsin, and I get cold easily. So you're going to see the hoodie. Get used to it, okay? Thank you. So what else did I want to cover with you? Oh, yeah, the city of MKE. We are thriving. Our School of Engineering, Milwaukee School of Engineering, just got I think it's a $34 million contract to do training and development research for AI, which is artificial intelligence. So that's pretty neat. They're hitting the ground running in 2019, I tell you. So right here in the MKE. All right, you guys should come visit sometime. It is wonderful. I would come in the summer though. Come in the summer. And we don't get our summers, we don't get our springs till late. So I know like down south they get them a little earlier in May. We get ours towards the middle or end of May. So like I would come between the end of May and September. You're good as gold. You'd enjoy yourself. The weather's wonderful. We have a lot of festivals. You'd love it. Come visit us. Don't necessarily come visit me. You know, call first. Call my real phone. You know, or message me. Ask me first. Give my permission. But maybe, you know, I'm not that social, but maybe we could, you know, work something out. Okay? Maybe. Let's see. No promises. No promises. But come visit the city for sure. If you don't come visit me necessarily, come visit the city. It has a lot to offer. Lot to offer. MKE. It ain't perfect though. We kind of got like me and MKE, we're kind of like a love-hate like relationship, you know, that type of thing. Yeah, it's that kind of thing. I love them though. I love the city. Okay, so moving on. Tonight we are going to talk again about this subject. It was chapter 4, called Remote Neuromonitoring, RNM, that's what that stands for. And this time we're going to talk about something called being put on remote. Okay, so the actual word is remote neuromonitoring, and the slang for this being used on you is called being put on remote. So you'll see how this works. Oh, I know how I did this last time. I'm sorry, guys. Bear with me, huh? It's been a long week. All right, so what are we talking about here? This book is, remember, titled Guinea Pigs, as in human non-consensual experimentation guinea pigs. So this was a cover of Time magazine. I don't know if it's a spoof or it's actual real cover, but you get the point. What it's illustrating here is that humans are used non-consensually as guinea pigs in experimentations for, this is a good keyword you're going to want to remember, training, research, and development. Okay? Get my face out of the way. Training, research, and development. That's what this is all for. Okay? So remember that word. We are going to, I'm just going to recap on the last part of chapter 4, just briefly. I'm going to talk about the doctors and their research, Dr. Pineo and Dr. Malik, and how they basically combined everything to make a brain-computer interface possible. Okay, we're going to cover that because brain-computer interface is kind of the crux of this conversation. That brain-computer interface is basically, hang on, let me just adjust this for a moment. There. Okay, brain-computer interface is syncing, like Bluetoothing, your brain with a computer or a device, you know, a cell phone, tablet, pretty much many things, but a computer and the human brain, syncing them, as in like Bluetooth. So we'll talk about that a little bit. And then the new part that we touched on only a little bit that we're going to focus more on tonight is part 3 of that whole process, where we're at. Because remember, that technology was developed in the 70s, and now this is 2018. So we've come a long way, baby, as the saying goes, right? We've come a long way in technology. I say we because, you know, collectively, and for those of us who've been used as guinea pigs, you know, we've given a lot of ourselves to this program. Like it or not, you know, we weren't really asked, but I digress. You know, we've come a long way. So let's talk about it, where we're at in 2018. I want to show you, or let's talk about it. Okay, so again, we're going to talk about RNM, remote neural monitoring. Remote neural monitoring. It's kind of a tongue twister, but it's a key word, so definitely get used to it, unless they change it to something else. But for right now, it's RNM. Okay, and I just want to give you visual of what we're covering, so you can see. It's kind of easier to follow along when you can have an idea. Let's see if you can see this. There you are. Okay, that is the subjects we're covering. It's a review, it's a recap of chapter 4 about the research from the doctors, and then that was done back in the 70s. And then it is going to talk about how they combine to make the brain-computer interface. And part 3, 2018, is going to talk about where we're at now with the remote neuromonitoring capabilities. And boy, it can do a lot. It's going to blow your mind. Okay, just stay tuned. And then we're going to talk a little bit about who has access to this technology and how this technology, this is an important thing, how this technology can lead to stalking. I'm going to explain that because that's very, very important. There is a safety element in the things that I'm speaking of. Obviously, you know, when you're talking guinea pigs and non-consensual human experimentation, there tends to be a level of safety that needs to be kept in your forebrain, needs to be kept in the front of your mind to keep yourself and others safe. So one of the ways we can do that is by being aware, right? That's your first line of defense. That's why I always say stay smart and do your research. I don't mean to point at you. Stay smart and do your research because it will save you and it could save others, okay? So this is what we're covering. All right. Ta-da. Okay. So, what is the big deal? Remote neural monitoring. What's it all about? Well, it's all about this. The brain, that wonderful, wonderful apparatus, that living organ inside of our cranium that just makes us us, our personality, our hopes, our dreams, what we find delight in, what we take joy in, what gives us peace, what gives us happiness, what gives us meaning, what makes us us. This is it. People talk about the heart, and the heart is important, but the brain is so very important. So that's one version of the brain, the actual organ, okay? Now this is another version of the brain, which is the electromagnetic frequency part of the brain, which means that every time you think a thought or have an emotion, mad, sad, glad, it makes a frequency. Every thought, little, big, so all day long, your brain is just up there, you know, working it out, like just passing signals back and forth. Frequencies. Frequencies and signals are interchangeable vocabulary. For remote neural monitoring, I wanted to show you a picture of a neuron. Okay, this is a neuron. This is if you took a sample of your brain and put it, you know, just scraped it, which is a weird terminology. But anyways, if you just lightly scraped it, you know, your brain, and you put it on a slide, just a little, you know, little swab, and you put it under a microscope, put it on a slide and put that slide under a microscope to view it, you would see this. And I remember taking biochemistry, and we got to look at things like this, you know, in the books, and you know, actually under the microscopes, and they were pretty interesting. So yeah, this is your brain on a microscopic level, the neuron. Hence the word remote neural monitoring. They're monitoring your brain activity because each time you think a thought or an emotion, these things fire. There's a whole network of them. It's what makes us us. So the brain is the physical organ, but this is what's going on at a cellular level. Okay. You guys got it. I know you do. You got it. Stick with me. We're at 13 minutes. Okay. I'm going to speed it up a little bit. All right. So there was 2 famous doctors in the 1970s at Stanford that did important research in the area of mind control. One of the doctors' name was Dr. Pineo. Okay. Just want to, so you get an idea. We're talking doctors here. Probably neuroscientists, but same idea. And they were at Stanford, and they were heading the research. They were doing very important research on mind control in the 1970s. Dr. Pineo was one, and Dr. Pineo wanted to, because if you remember how the brain works as far as thoughts and emotions, every time your brain thinks a thought or has an emotion, mad, sad, glad, that doesn't come in the heart, that originates in the brain, right? So with your frequency, on electromagnetic level, a frequency is made every time you think a thought, because it's a signal that your brain is sending or is producing. based on the thoughts and emotions. So that signal is called, you know, my favorite word for 2018, EMF, electromagnetic frequency. I'm going to keep this one over here because we might use that again. I'm sure we will. All right, so electromagnetic frequency, and that can be read, those thoughts and emotions can actually be read out by a machine called an EEG, electromagnetic, electroencephalogram. That measures the brain activity in the head, right? Electro is for the electricity, encephalo is for the brain, and gram is for the measurement of it. Okay, so you have EMFs, the signals that are measured by the EEG, the machine. It looks something like this. Again, this is all review, and it'll just take a few moments, but it's worth it to go over it again, because I think, and I've heard the saying, that repetition is the mother of retention. Repetition is the mother of retention. So the more you hear it, the more you retain it. And this is important info, because this is about mind control. Everybody has a mind. You don't want it controlled to the extent possible, you know. So we're coming up on some interesting times. I digress, and it's late, so I'm tired. I'm probably, you know, fumbling over my words a little bit. I'm sorry. Plus there's a little more to it. I can't get into that right now, but it's been a rough week, to say the least. Anyways, let's move on. So those EMFs are measured by an EEG machine. This is what it would look something like this. Okay, there's the machine, there's the electrodes hooked up to the guy's scalp. Every time he thinks a thought, it would send a signal in the machine. This machine can read out the signal. Looks like waves, you know, which is why the word frequencies and signals, and what's the other word? Yeah, waves, frequencies, signals. It's all the same. And that's what it looks like. But these are not just squiggly lines and waves. These are thoughts and emotions to the human psyche. It's interesting. I know mine are, right? Everybody's are, because they're so different to each person. It must be amazing to, you know, to look in on that, you know. Just want to go over this again. Thoughts and emotions end up turning into behaviors. And I used an example of this before, like, for instance, I feel emotion is, you know, I feel happy. So happy would be the emotion. So I'm going to sing. Now singing would be the actual behavior that you would see displayed. So the emotion comes first, then the behavior. Same thing with the thought. I could think, okay, I have some good information. I want to share it. So I'll make a video. The making the video would be the behavior. But before you get the behavior, you always have the thoughts and the emotions first. Okay, and that's what the EMFs are broadcasting. These are actually readable. Legible, readable. You get it. Okay, because again, just for repetition, every thought and every emotion is an electromagnetic frequency that is readable, legible by an EEG. Okay, so just to give an example of emotions, here's a little chart. You have anger, fear, sadness, joy, all those wonderful emotions, you know, and they're so varied from each person and during different states and everything. So they're quite fascinating that we have so many, you know. So Dr. Pineo, to go back to the research, Dr. Pineo was able with people, he took test subjects, he put the EEG on them, so he put the electrodes on their scalp, and he would show them words, you know, on a piece of paper, and he would measure their brain activity as they read the word and thought of it. He did that. They did it for a long time with different subjects, and the end result was that he was able to create a dictionary of actual human thoughts and emotions that he was able to read on the EEG, because every time you think a same thought, your brain follows, usually more than likely, it follows the same pattern. So he created a dictionary of thoughts and emotions. Pretty interesting dictionary. I'd like to see it. And I'm sure it's in code, obviously. And so that's what Pineo was working on. He took, you know, they already had the ability to look at emotions and thoughts, but then he was able to go one step further and catalog them in a dictionary so that they could be referenced. Okay, and then he also was able to make that they found a way to be able to do that process. Now, because remember, used to be the subject had to be at the place of the testing and have the electrodes and have the machine hooked up, and then it could be read out. They found a way to be able to do it remotely, which means that your thoughts and emotions, all that stuff that's going on up here, can be read remotely from a distance, however long the distance is. Downstairs, across the hall, next door neighbor, across the city, a different state, etc. Remotely. So here's a picture of a remote, so you get the idea. I know you do. I know you guys do. You're smart. Remote. Remotely. That's the name of the game. Able to look at human thoughts and emotions live, remotely. Can read thoughts. Okay, so that was what Dr. Pineo did. That's what Dr. Pineo did. Now, there was another doctor that took this whole dictionary one step further. His name was Dr. Robert G. Malik, and he created an apparatus. I don't have a picture of it, I just wrote it. Apparatus, okay, that's how we're going to explain it. It was a machine of some sort, and Dr. Malik was the one that created it, another Stanford researcher during that time. With that apparatus, he was able to take the words that were in Dr. Pineo's dictionary of human, not just words, they were human thoughts and emotions, and he was able, with his apparatus, to recreate those signals, those frequencies, thoughts and emotions, and send them back in to the patients, to the subjects. Okay, makes sense? And the way that they were able to do that, because if you think about it, basically the brain is like a big antenna. The head is an antenna. Since all the thoughts and emotions produce frequencies, those are signals. So the brain produces signals, and the brain can also receive signals. It's a transmitter receiver. We're walking around with it all the time. That's an important one. That's an important thing to remember. I don't want to point. It seems so like I'm so... That's an important thing to remember, that our brains are like an antenna that can transmit and receive. Okay? So, with all that research that those two gentlemen did, and that was back in the 1970s, mind you, that's almost 5 decades ago. And all that combined research, they figured out they were able to produce BCI, which is brain-computer interface. I'll show it to you. This is a word to remember, along with EMFs and EEGs. Okay, BCI, brain-computer interface, which is a fancy way of saying that you're syncing or Bluetoothing the human brain with a computer. Okay, that's what that means. That's what they did, so that they were able to read the thoughts and emotions with a computer through signals, EMFs, and then they were able to create a machine to send those signals back in to the human brain via EMFs, frequencies. BCI, brain-computer interface. You took a brain, you took a computer, and you marry them. And they live happily ever after. Something like that, okay? We'll get to it. So, what can happen after this research in the 1970s? Yes, we can read your mind. They can. It was kind of shocking when I first learned that. I thought, no, you think to yourself, like, no. The cognitive dissonance, I think, is the psychological term for it. Like, it's such a shocking realization where you just have to kind of mull it over. Like, I never heard any stories about that. I don't think so. Only crazy people talk about that. They must be mistaken. Maybe with some people, and they gave them some type of special, treatment or something that they were able to do that. That's not possible. They can't just read people's minds. You can't read thoughts and emotions. I mean, if you're not in the medical field or the scientific field, that was my first reaction. Can't be done. No way. It can be done. It has been being done since the 1970s. Okay, let's get over that. And meanwhile, I don't know, maybe I was thinking, what do you think the next step would be, guys? Guys and girls. Guys. I think we say that in Wisconsin, or maybe my family does. I don't know. Guys and girls, what do you think would be the next step? Okay, so these doctors did all this research. This was back in the 70s. They figured out all these things. They were able to do, finally, a brain-computer interface. What would be the next step, do you think, that they would take? I don't know. Let's find out, because I looked it up a little bit, and obviously Mr. Hall did the research. You know, maybe it looked something like this. Just kidding. Just kidding. I got to try to keep the mood light. I'm really tired tonight, and I'm trying to make sure that I, you know, get this done for you. Now the hamster looks kind of sad. He's a hamster in a wheel, you know? I was thinking, like, you know, your brain activity, if you don't really understand it on the higher level, like maybe you can just think it's something like this going on up there. Little, oh my goodness, a hamster is trying to do it, ain't he? You keep going for it, buddy. But that's not how we work. We're so much more advanced than that. So much more. Really, it looks something like this, okay? There you go. There's a human head. There's the organic brain that we're all used to seeing. And those little lines, waves, represent frequencies going. Remember I said the brain was like a, you know, it's like a antenna, you know, so it makes these signals every time it thinks a thought, and it also it can receive them. Okay? It can produce and it can receive. Stick that right there for a moment. I like this picture. This kind of represented like BCI, you know, brain-computer interface, just, you know, how it might look when it's all synced up. Pretty cool. All right. Let me just make sure I see where we're at. Okay, part 3. This is where we're at. 2018. All that research was 70s, right? 1972, 1976, that Dr. Malik's apparatus got, you know, published, patented. So that was, you know, way back then. So now, 2018, what is going on with the BCI, with the remote neural monitoring? How far have we gotten? Well, let me tell you. Okay, the new RNM, remote neural, not new really, but to the stage we're at now, it would be remote neural monitoring actually can give access to, now remember, this is a computer that's synced with a human brain. They can read your thoughts and emotions, and they can actually take those thoughts and emotions and send them back into you too, at real time. I just want to emphasize that. Real time, which means as soon as you think it, poof, even quicker than that, the speed of whatever measurement they use. But it's quick, instantaneous, okay? RNM, what it does now is, make sure I explain this right. It can, when synced with a computer, the computer programmer, let's say, or the neuroscientist at the other end of the computer, can have access to the target's audio and visual and motor cortexes in the brain. Okay? I'll show you a picture so you can get a visual. Otherwise, it's just me blabbing. I'm going to show you a picture of a brain. All right, this is the different things. You see that thing sticking out is the brain stem. That's in the back by the spinal cord. And these are all the different functions that the brain controls and where they are located. And they know this because they've studied people, you know, for years. So just to say, in the front, this yellow part is movement. In the very front, there goes your attention, your planning, your decision making. There's the speech down there. What else? You have smell, memory processing. That's a big part, it looks like. It would have to be, right? Okay, the brainstem, right? That controls your heart rate and your breathing. Movement and coordination. Hearing is right up here. Taste. I know you always thought your taste was in your mouth, actually, but it's a center in your brain that controls taste. Vision. You wouldn't think that it'd be in the back of the head. Seems kind of like, you know, your eyes are in the front, so your vision center would be somewhere in here in the front of the brain. No, it's in the occipital lobe, which is in the back. That's just something I remember from learning in school. I thought that was kind of interesting because, again, you think the eyes are in the front, the vision center would be somewhere up in there. But no, it's in the back. And then this part, like we said, controls touch. So why is this important? Because with that, well, this is just pretty interesting, all the different parts. You know, so you can imagine, like, when people have strokes and whatnot, if these parts get damaged, why that would affect them. You know, or if somebody was being maybe abused or experimented on with an EMF, and if they were pulsing it on that certain spot, how that could affect things like, you know, speech, touch, taste, hearing, vision, etc. This shows a little more simpler map of it. So it's color coded here. You have the blue, which is the auditory, again, kind of right here towards the lower end in the front, or kind of in the middle. And then you have the motor, which is more towards the front, towards the back of the front. Touch, which is more on the top towards the middle. And visual, again, it's all in the back. Yeah. So what does that mean? Well, what we're talking about is with the remote neural monitoring, the neuroscientist or whomever has access to this computer has access to this person's monitoring brain signature, they can have access to the visual cortex. Okay, what does that mean? In a nutshell, that means that they could see what the actual target sees. Well, sure, because they're logged in, as it were, with your brain signature, with your brain wave frequency. They're logged in with you, and you know, they're synced, Bluetoothed, brain computer interface, and they can see what you're seeing because they have access to this with frequencies. Okay. Also, they can hear what you're hearing. You would think that your hearing is controlled by your ears, right? That's what we've always been told. You hear out of these things. Kind of. They're just really the organs, though. The actual center that controls it is here in the brain. And the auditory, that's the first one listed, that's right there, kind of in the middle towards the bottom. So that is where your hearing is ran from. So if somebody, again, has access to your remote neural monitoring, then they can have access to your audio cortex, which means they can hear what you're hearing. Okay? Also, too, the motor cortex up here towards the top, back of the front lobe. So they could maybe control movements. What kind of movements? I don't know. Everything is a movement. Blinking your eye. Blinking your eyes, right? We have two of them. Blinking your eyes is a movement. What else? Moving your arm is a movement. Snapping your fingers is a movement. These are all, in order to move any part of your body, your eyes, your arm, or your fingers, the signal has to come from your brain, right? And send it to that body part so that those muscles and tendons and flexors and extensors can work in unison and do the movement required or desired by the owner of the vessel, right? That's how it used to be. Well, what I'm explaining in this video is that with remote neural monitoring, that a programmer or whomever has access to remote neural monitoring would, in essence, have access to your visual, audio, and motor cortexes. So, and I just have another picture here. I thought this was kind of neat. The 221 Human Body Parts Encyclopedia. Oh, I used to love these things. I think that is, my mother always had these growing up around the house. We had, I don't know if you guys remember from the 80s, it was called like Woman's Body and Man's Body and Child's Body. It was a whole book, and it was like an anatomy and physiology book. It was a little one though. The woman's, I think, was blue. Yeah, and it had woman's body, and it had like a woman's skeleton on the front, and then it had chapters, and it talked about everything, reproduction, if you got a cold, what certain things, I mean, it was wonderful. It was like an anatomy and physiology book. I love that thing. My mother always kept one. We had one. Everywhere we moved. We didn't, we moved a bit, but we always kept that darn book. That and the Good News Bible. Not that we always followed it. Maybe we should have. We would have probably come out a lot better if we had to listen to, good, listen to God, the true God, Jehovah. That's his name. All right. I will always say his name because that is his name, and that's a form of respect. What I just understand that many people associate the name Jehovah with Jehovah's Witnesses, and I love Jehovah's Witnesses, and I give them their credit where credit is due because they are very good teachers of the Bible. So I'll leave it at that, but I don't want to turn you away thinking that, my religion is I don't want to exclude anybody else. But that is, for Christianity, that is God's true name. Everything and everybody has a name. Everything, everybody. Nobody just walks around without a name. Okay, so how much more so our Creator has a name, and it's Jehovah. So I'm going to use it, okay? Don't be scared. Look it up. Research it. Don't take my word for it, okay? All right, so anyways, 221 human body parts. I thought this was quite interesting. Look at, there's the brain, the kidneys, the eyes, the heart. My goodness. I took anatomy and physiology, just enter the beginner levels at school when I was going for my associate level medical degree. And it was just wonderful. Those classes were so hard, but they were so interesting. It's the information that you think that you'll never retain. You're like, why do I have to know every little detail? I'm not going to remember it. But somehow, the way our brains are built, you do absorb that, and it comes up later when you need it, after it's had a chance to sink in and whatnot. So it's definitely worth it. So yes, you understood what I was saying, that the remote neural monitoring actually gives the programmer access to your visual, audio, and motor cortexes. That's a lot of control for somebody that's not actually owning the vessel, right? I think so. What it does is you can imagine, and one thing too, when this is done, this is all done in real time, okay? Real time. So meaning the speed of light or whatever it is they use to measure. So you think the thought, boom, it can be transmitted to the computer. If you want to make the movement, boom, just quick, just like I snap my fingers. That's real time. Signals passing to and fro. All right. So what this means is that a person, whomever, Tom, Dick, or Harry, Sally, Sue, Jane, can be turned into a walking, talking surveillance system, is what it is, So that's kind of interesting. Look around. Where's the camera? Where's the camera? I know there's a camera in here. There's a camera. Where's it at? Is in the, where is it in the wall? We gotta, where is that darn camera? Surprise! The camera's inside of you. You're the camera. The person has access to they can see what you see. Oh, they can hear what you hear. They can move your body without you asking them to do it. Okay. Sorry. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's just interesting. Let me bring this up too. This is all in real time, so instantaneous. And then it can be a great thing because this is what's used in rehabilitative technology, BCI. Brain computer interfacing. That's like, okay, I'll give you 3 examples. I love 3, and I don't mean it in a, I don't know what it is about 3, but there's certain numbers that are symbolic, and I know in the Bible the number 3 is very symbolic. So we can get into that some other time, but I like 3, and I think it's good for when you're trying to make points or give examples, because you don't want to give too many to where you won't remember them, and I don't want to give too little to where it doesn't make the impact in case you missed the first one. If your attention span is like mine, like, oh wait, I missed examples 1 and 2, but I got the 3rd one, that's good. So what I wanted to say, so I'll give you 3 examples of BCI, how this can be used for the good. Okay, so a soldier goes to war and loses their arm or leg, their limb. In the old days, you just get a plastic limb. I don't know where you're from, but where I'm from, we have somebody at our local DMV, and that person had a hook, a metal hook, poor guy, for his arm. He lost his arm somehow through disease or, trauma, some type of accident, or maybe warfare. I never asked. I didn't want to be rude. But yeah, and he had a metal hook. He seemed happy. He seemed fine, even-tempered fella. But he had to walk around with a metal hook, and can you imagine, just to give you, imagine like trying to brush your teeth or brush your hair, or what if your eye itches? You know what I mean? Like sometimes your eye itches, you got to get in there and, and it's sensitive. You don't want to poke yourself or, They're just strange areas itch on the body, or you got to tie your shoelace, or you're adding a little bit of salt in your food. You don't want to over salt it, or just all those little motor skills, especially the small ones. Those it'd be hard to do with a metal hook. It really would. That poor guy. But he seemed happy, and God will restore it later, so it's fine. But the point is, nowadays, thanks to the technology of BCI, you can have a chip implanted in your brain somewhere, and you can get a prosthetic arm, right? And you can, I've seen those. If you, Google the videos, you'll see them too. And with those prosthetic arms, from what I've seen, you can actually, tighten it. You can, flex it. You can extend it. One guy was able to crack an egg with it. He was able to pour himself a beer with it. These are all things. I wish I could remember. I think the arm was named Luke, off of, like Star Wars, where the Luke character lost his arm and he got a new one. BCI. So that's a good example of BCI being used in a positive way. Okay, and again, that's able to be done because the chip in the brain operates on signals and sends the signal to the prosthetic limb to move through courtesy of EMFs, BCI, electromagnetic frequencies, signals between the brain and the computer or the prosthetic limb. Okay, another one, I know I always tell you guys this example, but I worked in the field that I work in. I worked at a brain trauma center, and one of the young guys there, he was in a wheelchair and he couldn't speak. So imagine how that would be. You're young, you want to be able to talk to people, you're learning your social skills, and speaking is an important part of it. Even if you don't speak a lot, you want to be able to speak when necessary. So this young guy, had a chip implanted in his eye, and he was able to, through BCI, brain-computer interface, speak. He could use the computer to speak. And this was all in real time, because he would, the signal from his brain would go to the chip, and then the chip would transmit the signal to the computer to speak for him so that he could engage in real time in the conversation at hand. Wonderful for him. Otherwise, imagine a life like that, not being able to speak and express yourself. Good use of BCI. Okay, that's my second example. My third example is, I did home health, and worked for, I'm not going to give you names or anything, but worked for a gentleman that was in a wheelchair and couldn't walk. So with his BCI, he was able to give a command from a chip, pretty sure, yeah, from a chip to the, how else would it have been done, right? From the chip to the computer, to the computer to move the wheelchair so that he could, move around with the wheelchair, and otherwise he was paralyzed from, the neck down. How can you can't wheel it, you can't push it, you have to, what did it? Now I'm thinking of something else. Hold on. I gotta think these. It's late. It's been a long day, guys. Thank you so much. We're at 45 minutes. We're almost done. What did that guy do with his computer? I think it did, yeah. I believe it did it sure did make his wheelchair move. I think. It did something with his wheel. It operated everything else anyways in the house. It was all BCI hooked up to his computer, to the devices. That's my point. So it can be used for good things, right? Yeah. Great. All right. So now that we understand that, I want to say, and if I wanted to point this out, this was kindly pointed out to me by someone, or that I noticed. I like to study smart people. I feel like I'm one of the people that are not so smart, and I like to be around smart people and just look and be all up in their conversation. It's kind of like when you're learning another language and you have no clue yet, but you want to learn. So you're sitting there listening and watching them talk and trying to absorb the language. I do that. I try to do that with smart people now, more so as I'm getting older, like especially scientists and stuff. I find them fascinating. They have a whole different language. If I would have known physics was this interesting, I would have showed more interest. But I just thought it was hard, and I didn't even really understand what it was. Goodness gracious. Oh, well, it's never too late to learn. That's why we're here, right? This is fun. Okay, I wanted to tell you, we're talking a lot about chips, but as someone pointed out to me, and I think they would know, I trust their skill level. Okay, so what that person said was that technically you don't need chips anymore to do to send signals, because you can use this nanotechnology, which is atoms. Okay, those are, I believe those are, yeah, representation of atoms. Okay, atoms are like your body is full of atoms at the atomic level. So underneath your flesh and bone, your muscles, your tendons, when you get way down to the cellular level, you know, if you were to take and scrape each, you know, body part, and you could look at it on a cellular level, all the different cells, and then if you even go deeper than that, the chemicals, right, that make, yeah, chemistry, all the chemicals that make up the, you know, the body. And then if you go, you know, like carbon and whatnot, is it carbon? You know what I'm saying. But at its basic level, the human body and animal bodies and the world around us is made of, you know, it's all atomic, right? That's why when they say things, I don't want to say this, but you know, the atomic thing, whatever, like, why is it such a big deal? Well, because it can like destroy your whole, like incinerate you. Pretty intense, I guess, you know. So anyways, at on the most basic level, we are all made of atoms. So theoretically speaking, or not theoretically, but signals can be sent using nanotechnology, you know, sending signals to directly to your atoms without the need for a chip. I just thought I'd point that out, okay? But if you were to have a chip, I have a picture of one, okay? Or, you know, just to get a visual. There you go. See, that's the person's finger, and that's the size of the chip. It's smaller than a fingernail. So that's how small they are if you know, were to have one implanted for whatever reason. Then let's see here. Okay, our environment too is made up a lot of, we've covered this before, but you know, EMFs, good word, my favorite word for 2018. Our whole world is filled with EMFs, right? I mean, we are like saturated by it. As soon as we walk out of the door and in our homes, you know, the internet is a form of a frequency, right? It's EMF. We call it Wi-Fi, but it's really a frequency. The TV sending the broadcast is a frequency. The radio is sending a broadcast frequency. Cell phones, broadcast frequency. So our whole world really runs on frequencies, including our brains and our bodies. So I wanted to show you a picture of a little illustration of what, you know, where exactly all these EMFs are coming from. Remember, EMFs are invisible, right? We can't see them, but they're there. They're definitely there. They operate in the invisible realm, but they are frequencies. So they're everywhere. I think that's a drone. That's a tower. There's another tower type of thing. You know, you got all types of stuff. A little subway type of thing, or whatever. Oh, satellite. Satellites, then you got it in the house. You got it everywhere. Just everywhere. Everywhere. Frequencies. So, excuse me, we're almost done here. We're at 48 minutes. This is an important one. This is pretty intense technology, huh? You know, the ability to do all these things with the human brain and body. So who has access to this technology? Who has access to this technology? Well, who does have access to this technology? Well, you know what? Excuse me a moment. Hang on, guys. Thank you for being patient. You know, okay. Just going to give it to you straight. Okay. The world works on a hierarchy of power. We know this from when we're little, right? Our parents are higher than us, our brothers and sisters, depending on where they're at in the, birth order, they're higher or lower than us. Theoretically speaking, in the realm of power, there's a hierarchy, and there's usually nothing wrong with it. We kind of have to live like that. It gives us order, it gives us structure. It's normal, it's natural. As humans, we tend to do that. We branch into our different hierarchies. The world around us is like that too. Even if you study the Bible, there's a hierarchy, obviously, in heaven, with Jehovah God and his angels, and there's different types of angels and different positions, and everybody loves everybody, and that's okay. And there's a hierarchy. So how much too, I was going to say how much more so, but it's not more so. Earth is less than heavens, right? Okay, how much the same, since we're created in Jehovah's image, that we also have a hierarchy here on earth. What does that look like? It looks like, I want you to envision, well, yeah, I mean, if you want to get an idea of anything, you always want to refer to the pyramid, don't you? It's a good visual. I'm not super, I'm not extrally concerned with pyramids, but I do think it's a good visual, and I do think it sums up the power hierarchy. I was going to show you a pyramid symbol with my hands, but I don't want you to think I'm into any type of stuff. So so you got it in your head. You know what a pyramid is, right? It's a triangle, okay? So when you're asking who has access to these fancy gadgets, to do all these things in the human brain, well, think of the pyramid and think of it as far as money and power, So who would sit at the top of the pyramid? Besides the true God himself. Obviously, that's but that's above the pyramid. The pyramid, the power hierarchy at the very top would be I pause because well, you know what? I'm going to let you figure out some things for yourself. There's a power hierarchy, right? You guys are smart. You read your Bibles, so you know how the world works. I don't have to spell out everything for you, right? My viewers are, if I have any viewers, do I have any viewers out there? Is anybody watching this, or what the heck am I doing? Cut. Just kidding. I'm here. We're here. Okay. I would like to go over this in detail, and maybe we'll do that on a later video. But just use your thinking abilities that are God-given. You got them, okay? Use them. Imagine who would be, if it's power and money at the top, just imagine who would be there. I guess you'd have corporations at the top, the fat cat corporations that are, have lots of money and funding and can, have access to all the gadgets they want, really. And who would be underneath them? Maybe some of the government enterprises, right? At all levels. You got your federal, you got your state, you got your cities, you got your counties. Those are all branches of government. You would have another branch of the government, which is pretty high. That'd be the military-industrial complex, right? Every country, especially, United States, is a world power. So the military-industrial complex has to be pretty effective and pretty doing a lot of training and research development. All right. And then you also have the paramilitary underneath the regular military. Paramilitary is basically like a local, like police and sheriff's department. That would be paramilitary. So military, but not for overseas, for stateside, right? Your local police department and your local sheriff's department, they are a form of paramilitary for the cities and the counties that they serve and protect. So most of the time they do a great job. Works fine, right? We're all great. Okay, good. That's the power structure. And then also too, in here, you're going to have your things like, your secret societies, your organizations, things like that. It's a fact of life. You're going to have your crime syndicates in here, right? They have access because they have money. They're organized. Not all bad people. Not all. They're not all good people either. Like with everything, you got your good and your bad and your levels, okay? This is levels, right? So we're talking about who has access to this technology. goes from the top to the bottom. So, but it would come from the top, right? So you would think maybe at the bottom would be like local gang members or local community members also. People that maybe have ties to the upper hierarchy, which is why I always say watch who you hang around with, because you never know who knows somebody, and you never know with people being a little bit unpredictable. If you cross somebody and you don't realize how badly they feel crossed, or how badly you hurt their feelings, or maybe they're sensitive, or maybe not. Maybe you were being a flaming B word. I'm not going to say any names. I don't know what I was thinking. Anyways, we're going to cover that in another video. But don't do it. Do not do it. Control your emotions. Love God. Love covers a multitude of sins. Be loving to people, because everybody, we're struggling with pretty much the same things. We're all trying to scramble in a world that's hard to live in sometimes. And be aware. Be aware that there is this hierarchy, and watch who you keep around you. Watch how you deal with people. Out of respect, don't be afraid. Don't be fearful. But also just be respectful at all times. You want to gain more allies than enemies. Okay, especially because this technology, you don't want somebody getting mad at you and then, oops, they know the sheriff's department. Ooh, guess what? The sheriff's department probably has access to these fancy gadgets. Well, they do. They're paramilitary. Who else are they going to give it to, right? If the corporations give it to the governments, and the governments give it to their branches, like military and paramilitary, wouldn't the sheriffs have access to it? Maybe. I'm not saying for sure. I'm just, hypothetically speaking. And if you know somebody who knows the sheriffs, somebody who works for the sheriffs, maybe a bigwig, whoa, and you just offended them, or, they got a little, something going on up there, and this could be dangerous. Anyways, you guys get it. I'm harping. Okay, you got it. You got the gist. All right, let's put it away. Put it away. You got it. There's a hierarchy. There is a power hierarchy. Okay, I'm not going to even make the pyramid sign with my hands. I feel tempted to give you a visual, but I'm not going to do it. I'm not. You got it. You got the visual in your head. We're my signals are, we're working here together. Almost done too. All right, my last part of what I wanted to talk about was, now that you've seen the power hierarchy, is how this all ties in, the remote neural monitoring. Let me show you a picture again. I know you know it. I know you guys know. But I just like these pictures because it really, excuse me for a minute. Rustling, rustling, rustling through my papers. And I need to put it somewhere else. Okay, no, I really want it. Just hang on. Hold on, guys. We're doing good. We're almost done. You don't need to see any of this stuff again. For now. I said I was going to work on my piles, right? So that we could have the information in flotation ready. Okay, here it is. Ta-da! Remote neural monitoring. That's what we've been discussing this whole time. How it can be used to read thoughts and emotions, send thoughts and emotions back in to the person. And then also now with 2018, the remote neural monitoring can give access to whomever has access to the technology, gives them access to your visual cortex, which means they can see what you see, your audio cortex, which means they can hear what you hear, and your motor cortex to a point to where they could maybe control body movements like blinking of eyes, moving of arms, snapping of fingers, because that's all controlled in the brain, and signals, EMFs, operate within the brain. So that's what remote neural monitoring is. Actually, it's called remote neural monitoring is if they're just looking, right? Using you as a giant walking surveillance system. Manipulation would be if they're actually like, manipulating your thoughts and emotions or your actual movements. Okay, and that's done because the brain is a giant antenna. It's a transmitter receiver. It makes its own signals and it receives signals. Every time it thinks a thought, boom, signal. So those signals sent back in. Okay, whatever. Thoughts, emotions, movement, there you go. It's all there. All right, so again, yes, we can read your mind. Alrighty. They can. Great. This is why it actually can promote stalking. Okay? This can promote stalking because that's what the system is, actually. This is a surveillance-based tool, right? Surveillance, stalking, potato, potato. One person says, I'm surveillancing you. One person says, I'm stalking you. Usually they don't admit to stalking though, right? They're just, well, I'm just, well, you're stalking me. Surveillance, stalking. Okay, whatever. Sometimes some people got to be stalked, I guess, if you're whatever extenuating circumstances. For the most part, no. And yeah, well, anyways, this remote neural monitoring is a tool that can be used as a tool of control and to help stalkers stalk. It's what it's for. So the dangers would be something like espionage, privacy issues. Maybe I don't want you to have access to my visual cortex. Maybe I don't want you seeing what I'm seeing. Maybe I'm showering. Maybe I don't want you to see me showering. This is my private body. You're not my husband or my boyfriend. My privacy, right? And sure, you ladies and gentlemen feel the same way, right? Your body, your eyes, your ears. Just a thought, maybe I don't want you to hear my private conversation with my husband. Maybe I don't want you to hear my private conversation with my mother, okay? With my banker, with my clergyman, with my best friend, with my aunt or uncle. Maybe I don't want you to hear that. It's possible. So yeah, also what's the big risk in this is we're at 1 hour now. I'll be done within 15 minutes or less. Sorry for going over. We'll be done. I just wanted to make this point about the stalking. See, in this technology also has the ability to turn humans into mind control slaves. It used to be, we went over that in chapter 2, I believe, of Mr. Hall's book, Guinea Pigs, and it talked about there is an extreme training that goes into turning somebody into a mind control slave. A mind control slave would be somebody like a super soldier, Manchurian candidate, somebody that will kill on demand, overriding their own free will and, doing the bidding of another. So that's a mind control slave. There's also mind control slaves, sex kittens. So what in the past, in order to turn somebody into a mind control slave, remember I did the 3-part recipe, you had to have lots of psychological conditioning, trauma-based conditioning, starting from a young age, to make the personality split and form a multiple personality, which would then become the mind control slave, the super soldier, or the sex kitten, or whatever you wanted them to be, right? Depending on the need. So, a lot of times I'm not going to, we'll get to that later. But then you also needed lots of ritual abuse, lots of torture, right? That's what ritual abuse involves torture. So, and then you needed technology on top of that. So you needed those 3 things. There's my number 3 again. So you needed psychological trauma-based conditioning. You needed ritual abuse, satanic ritual abuse, which includes a lot of torture. And then the 3rd thing you needed in your recipe to get a mind control slave was technology, with electricity and EMFs. Early on, they used more electricity, like electroshock therapy, and actually like electrocuting people and whatnot. You could do some research on that if you're interested. It's torture, and technology. Because remember, the brain is electrical magnetic, It's not just the organ with blood and vessels and veins. It's electromagnetic activity up there. So what I was saying is with this technology now, we have gotten to the point where maybe you could, this is hypothetical, and well, I've done research on it, but it would stand to reason that with this advanced technology, with remote neural monitoring, maybe you wouldn't need to do those first 2 parts of the mind control recipe to make a mind control slave anymore. Maybe at this point in the game, all you need is the technology because it's so strong now. You know, you can send the signals right in. You don't need to maybe do years of training, traumatizing someone to get them to respond in a certain way to modify their behavior. Mind control, right? Mind control, behavioral modification, same thing. So maybe they wouldn't need to do those, you know, all that training, you know, steps 1, step 2, repeat, repeat, repeat. Maybe they would just now need to use the technology. Remote neural monitoring, boom, you're a mind control slave. You didn't have to go through years of training. Maybe they could take an older person. You know, in the past with a mind control slave, you had to get them young. You know, you got to get them young so their personalities will split so that they can make those multiples that they were wanting, right? For sex slaves and for, you know, other things, super soldiers. But now it can be done just with technology. So it's a remote neural monitoring is a perfect weapon. It's all because it's invisible and it's stealthy. If you're not aware that this even exists, or even if you are aware it exists, you wouldn't know unless you were a seasoned, you know, guinea pig, that when it's being used on you. Even then, you'd have to be conscientious of it to know, you know, because remember, it can read your thoughts and emotions, and then it can send them back in. So it can change your behavior. Something to be aware of. So yeah, gone are the days when the perverts need to lurk in the bushes and follow you around secretly, you know, with their little black, you know, hats on, as they were always portrayed, with their goggles and, you know, and around the corner in the car. They can do it all remotely now with technology by hacking into your devices. There's many levels of stalkers, and the reasons for stalking are, you know, all different, but the most popular and well-funded reason for stalking someone would be because you're a guinea pig. You're a non-consensual human-tested guinea pig for training, research, and development. So you become, you know, property of whomever, supposed property in their minds. You're their property to train and develop and research with. Yeah, that's how it's always been, and that's how it is. So you can be stalked at a high level, God help you, or you can be, sometimes what will happen is the higher levels at the pyramid will leak the technology down to the lower levels, okay? So that's the lower level, like the crime syndicates and the local gangs, stuff like that. You know, not that they're lower level people, just but that it's lower level on the power hierarchy, okay? So, and someone with military, government, or organized gang ties could have access to the technology to get you put on remote. That's the slang that's used, on remote. Because remember, your EMFs, electromagnetic frequencies, can be read and sent back in all remotely. So the person, you don't have to be in the same room as a person, right? They can be, like I said, down the hall, downstairs, next door, across the city, in a different side of town, in another state, okay? And thanks to satellite-based technology, they can still monitor your brain activity and do all those things that we talked about. Okay, read your thoughts and emotions, and get access to your audio and visual cortex and your motor cortexes and all that. So, and the way this is done is because we each have a unique brain signature, and it's unique like our fingerprints, so everybody's is different to them, original. So when they get that brain signature, they can literally monitor you from the inside out using your own, again, your brain's own visual and audio cortexes, right? And your motor cortexes can control some of your body movements, you know, make you do weird things, maybe keep yawning, you know, keep coughing, you know, whatever. So all this technology, again, is based off of my favorite word. I'm just going to bring it up again. I got to bring it up. I got to show it to you too. I got to. This is the last one. I thank you guys for being patient. Maybe you're tired of hearing this word. But no, it's interesting. And I think you get it. You get it. Is this? Okay, here it is. Ta-da. All right. Electromagnetic frequency, EMFs. The whole world runs on it. Our brains, our bodies, our environments. Okay. And so brain signatures, EMFs, everything runs on it. So in closing, I would like to say this. You see, again, the book that I'm getting a lot of this information from for this video. Well, I've gotten a collective amount of information. Not that I've just gotten it from one place, but I'm using that as a reference point. But I've gotten, you know, used multiple sources, I guess is the way to word it. So, again, the title of this book is Guinea Pigs, Human Non-Consensual Experimentation, and it's been being done. People are being tested on for decades, non-consensually. We gave examples in chapter 1. Go back and look at the video if you didn't already, okay? Look at it. It's interesting. Not too long. Not for the information that it holds. Your time is valuable, and so is the information in here. I've watched a lot of YouTube videos, and some of them are long, and some of them are good, though. They're good, and you come out being informed. So if you can stick to it. Little suggestion, too. Sometimes you might want to break up your viewing, like if you look at a YouTube video and you see like, oh my goodness, this one's an hour and 20, oh my goodness. Then you just split it up, you know? Put it in your little save for later one on YouTube. They have that option. Okay? So, So, yeah, anyways, these people, as in us, have been tested on for decades. And many times in the past, people were complaining of symptoms like having their thoughts read, right? People were monitoring them. The TV was watching them, right? And it all sounds so freaking paranoid. Right? Isn't that what, you hear somebody talking about that? You're like, oh, not well. Well, guys, girls, it turns out they have been doing this. There is technology to read your brains. It has been since, I don't mean to be also, but it has been since the 1970s. Reading thoughts. The TV is watching me. The TV can watch you. It can. There was a lot of training, research and development being done on human guinea pigs, okay, for many decades now, and will continue for many decades because the goal is mass, mind control on a mass scale. Okay, so yeah, I just want to give a shout out to those people, and and you should too. I mean, just think about it. Like, wow, the people that were labeled paranoid or crazy or delusional because they were speaking on these things and most likely were victims of non-consensual testing, they were right and they were being tested on. And now, years later, we can actually see it. Oh, okay, makes sense. Whoops, sorry. Hope you didn't mind that mental hospital stay. Hope it wasn't too bad on you. Yikes, I'm just saying, we have to, that just deserves consideration. Those poor people, I worked at a psychiatric hospital one time, and it was okay. It was okay. It was different though. It was different. And and it's funny because when I was there, I thought to myself, half of these people don't seem, when you think of working in a mental hospital, and I've been around some things, so I'm not too faint at heart, for mental illness and whatnot. When you work in the medical field, you see a lot of Alzheimer's and dementia related symptoms. Some just regular, just a little senile, and then some are really, people are really affected by whatever, organic or whatever, EMFs or something, I don't know. But yeah, so you get used to it. You get used to it. And plus my family, the way we grew up, I'm not faint of heart. So when I seen a lot of the people in that psychiatric facility, they seem pretty normal, like really. So anywho, just keep that in mind, okay? That we all at any point are, can be, have been, are being, or will be used to be guinea pigs in non-consensual human testing. That's just the way it is. So, in a lot of focus for 2019, you already know it's going to be on mind control research, right? AI. What does AI mean? Artificial intelligence. So, yeah. So the new quarter starts in January, in about less than, what's today, the 20th? So less than 11 days, we're going to be having a new quarter, which means new funding that comes from the top, right? Lots of money, big money, big money. And it's since 2018 went so well, I know I'm living proof that, you know, the technology is working. So they're going to be looking for more guinea pigs. That's just the way it is. There's billions being spent on this. So my my prayers and my empathy and my knowledge is with you. Okay, I got through this from people learning from others who had been through the same thing and making sense of all this. So I hope this video helps you do that. That is my goal always, is to share the knowledge, because you received free, now give free. So if anybody is needing this information, this was for you. All right. Let me do my closing here. We're at an hour and 15 minutes. You guys have been great. Thank you so much, so much. You're so patient. Oh, I know what I wanted to leave off on. I'll just say this. Stay smart. Do your research. Do your research. Scrabble. Scrabble's kind of fun, yeah? And then there's a Bible scripture. I told you that I was going to cover some Bible scripture. So this one is in 2 Corinthians 2:11, okay? That's 2 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 11. And it says, it's from the King James Version. It says, "Lest Satan should get an advantage of us, for we are not ignorant of his devices." Okay? So, lest Satan should get an advantage of us, for we are not ignorant of his devices. Okay, so devices meaning, you know, the way that he attempts to, you know, to do things. We need to be aware of that. We need to not be ignorant of it, because being ignorant, that can get you, you know, it's not good. Here's, you know, here it is right here. I believe this was the Apostle Paul talking, 2 Corinthians. Usually that, a lot of the New Testament is Paul. But he's telling us right here, and he would know, right? Lest Satan should get an advantage of us, for we are not ignorant of his devices. We are not. Okay? So, I want to say, stay smart, do your research, God loves you, and I thank you for spending this time with me. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you a lot, you guys. Have a good night or a good day, depending on when you see this. It was fun. Join me next time. We'll be summarizing those. I'll be summarizing another video. And I'll be doing the last 2 chapters on Dr. Hall's guinea pigs. All right, so I look forward to seeing you. Have a good day. Thanks. Bye.